All right, everyone, we are live.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
I'm Bobette Mays, the Vice Chair of the Community Reparations Commission. And I'd like to welcome you to the June 10th, 2024 Specialty Call Meeting. All CRC members and staff are participating virtually for today's meeting. The live meeting will be streamed on the city's YouTube channel, accessed through the YouTube icon on the front page of the city's website or via the live stream. You may also listen to the meeting via phone by calling 855-925-2801 and entering meeting code 9040. And for today's virtual meeting, we have the option for people to call in and comment live during the meeting. To call in and comment live, use the same number, 855-925-2801, meeting code 9040. Your phone will be muted and you will hear the meeting live. At this point, speakers will need to push *3 to enter the speaker queue. I will now do the roll call and we will begin this meeting. Dwayne Barton. Norma Baines.
Present.
Tiffany Devereaux. Renetta Conyers.
Present.
Christopher Gordon.
Present.
Roy Harris. Shonda Jackson. Kim Jones. Dewana Little. I know you're here. Dwayne McAfee. Glenda McDowell.
Here.
Tamara Miller. Dwight Mullen. Mildred Nance Carson, excuse me.
Here.
Osandu McPeters.
Present.
Thomas Priestley. Dwayne Richardson. Eric Robinson.
Dwayne Richardson here. Sorry, my microphone was muted.
Okay. Eric Robinson. Renetta Waters.
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay. Cece Weston.
Present.
D. Williams.
Here.
MZ Zahuda.
MC Yehuda.
Yes, Zahuda. You here?
I'm here.
All right. And Keith Young.
Here.
And then our alternates, D. Burris, Shaniki Giles Bayton, and Jesse Ray.
Do we have a quorum?
We have 14. Yes, we do. We do. It's established.
Tawana, you're going in and out. No, you're muffled.
Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Yep, that's a little better. Yes.
All right. Welcome everyone to our Juneteenth Community Reparations Commission meeting. I'm super excited to see y'all as we move through the agenda. I just want to thank everyone who came out for the retreat and those who couldn't but did provide their input through the survey. So I just thank everyone and welcome to our Juneteenth meeting. And so now we will move on to our minutes. Approval of our minutes.
Go ahead, Dee.
You're muted, D.
Okay. I'm sorry, I have a slow connection here. One of the things that happened that was not in the minutes was the fact that I asked about the 14th Amendment. And it was so, I guess, prescient that Brad Branham, the city attorney, did take the podium. But it was not in the minutes that I voiced that objection to approval by those minutes. I believe it is in a Channel 13 documentary that lasts for 5 episodes. And it's a substantial legal question. So I didn't see any reference. It said, and I quote, review item, community resource campus. The floor open for commissioners to ask clarifying questions and make comments relevant to the recommendation being considered, with city attorney Brad Branham providing a response and explanation of legal's role in the drafting of proposed recommendations. Dr. Lavender addressed the choice of language recommendations. I'm the one that asked the question that brought him to the podium. I don't, it is not there, nor is there a reference to the 14th Amendment. And some of you were not there at the June 1 retreat, but that was the topic that the city attorney had to sit down with the facilitator and explain to her why because most of the actions you took were illegal and have to be redone. So that is a pertinent insertion into that, is the 14th Amendment. That's the only thing that I see that's wrong with these minutes, but I don't understand why that was excluded. And it happened on May 13th, and Channel 13, thank God, recorded it, and it should be a part of your recordings as well. And a 5-part episode. I didn't even know it until the banks told me that it was a 5-part episode. Most of the major banks in Asheville told me that. So I don't know why it's left out, because it is pertinent. Everything had to be redone to accommodate the 14th Amendment, the Equal Protection Clause. Because when you put language in that excludes certain groups, it does violate the Constitution. This is not talking about power structures. This is, you got elected representatives, city and county government, who are sworn to uphold those general and federal statutes. And with those, the city attorney could not present these recommendations in the form they were to his clients, which are city and county commissioners and council people, and acting on the people's behalf. So I don't know why that was excluded, because it was major. It just came from me. That's all. So I'd like to put in that I did object based on the 14th Amendment.
Dee, I have
on that May 13th meeting. It's nowhere to be found in here.
Are you able to hear me? Dee, are you able to hear me?
Who?
This is
no, I can't hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was just an oversight. We will get those minutes corrected.
I would appreciate it. And then if there's an issue, thank you so much. And if there's an issue, I will go to the city manager, the legal counsel, and the city clerk, because that is a pertinent legal matter that changed the whole direction of this group. And it came from me. I'm not trying to put myself up over, but I was appointed to this commission to make sure it worked. Not run into legal snafus, because you've got people out there waiting to sue, and I know that as well. So I would appreciate you putting that in. Thank you.
Update. You're welcome. We'll update the minutes. It's been noted. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Are there any other amendments to the agenda, to the minutes from May 13th? Any other amendments? MZ, I see your hand.
Yeah, so are we looking at the May 13th minutes or the
May 13th minutes.
Okay.
Just the May 13th. Any other amendments? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes pending the amendment of the insertion of the 14th amendment as Dee just stated?
And by D. Williams, please do. And I'll make that motion, provided it's put by my name. It seems to be some reason why my name is left out when I bring the intellectual capital to it. And that is the only reason why I'm here. So yes, I will make that motion, but in my name needs to be by that because I did bring it
All
up
right,
and there was a whole session last week. Thank you.
okay. Can I get a second?
Tiffany Debelow here, and I second the motion to approve the minutes with the amendment in D. Williams' name.
All right, and we will have to, because we are virtual, we will be doing a roll call vote. Bobette, can you, do the roll call vote, please?
I sure can. Dwayne Barton. Norma Baines.
I accept the motion.
Okay. Tiffany Devereaux. I know you made the
Yes.
motion, but say yes, thank you. Renetta Conyers,
I accept the motion.
Christopher Gordon,
I accept.
Roy Harris,
You're muted, Mr. Harris.
I accept.
Dewana Little,
I accept.
and I accept Bobette Mays. Glenda McDowell,
I accept.
Mildred Nance Carson. Accept. Osandu McPeters,
Accept.
Dwayne Richardson. Dwayne Richardson.
Accept.
Okay. Renetta Waters,
Accept.
CC Weston,
I accept.
MZ Zahuda.
Yehuda.
Yahuda. I'm gonna get you right before the end of the day. MZ, where'd you go?
I accept.
Okay. And Keith Young
Aye.
and D. Williams. You made
I
the motion.
accept with the insertion of the corrections per the legal
We
department
know.
and the
We got you.
clerk of.
We got you. We got you. We got you. I promise you.
Thank
We got
you.
you. We got you. We're good, Dewan. The motion should carry.
All right, Vernicia, would you like to review the survey results from May 13th and for June 1st?
Yes, so we had, well, first of all, good afternoon, everyone. And excuse me, my voice is struggling a little bit. I had a long week last week. But we had 10 responses from the May 13th meeting, and we had 8 responses from the June 1st meeting. So I want to just say thank you to all who participated. And that is all.
All right. All right. So now we are on to Salah. Oh, well, our objectives today. So our objectives today is to go over the retreat debrief. We would then go over the timeline update, the extension request discussion, final presentation and report update, community engagement update, and city and county update. And so we will move to our retreat debrief update by Salah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here with you on this Monday. Wanted to go over our retreat debrief and the voting results, which were added into your agenda. I will share my screen so that you all are able to see the document. Let me know if you're able to see that, and I will make it a little bigger. Because I know it's, are you all able to see this?
Yes, I can.
I see that someone raised their hand. Was that by mistake? Okay. So wanted to ask if you all had any questions. The retreat went really well. We had some great food, great conversation. But did any of you have any questions with regards to the recommendations that were voted on June the 1st? No questions? MZ?
I just wanted to know, are there meeting minutes from June 1st available?
No, since it was a retreat, it was not recorded. The only thing that we recorded were the votes.
Okay. Okay.
Salah, could we not send out the presentation?
Yeah, I can definitely resend that. That was included on the agenda. So the link is on the agenda, but I can definitely resend that to everyone if that'll be helpful. Yes,
Do
Steve.
I see your hands?
Yeah, I didn't know, but can you, if you're going to provide the voting results, is that going to be for the live meeting of what actually happened and was said, and the methodology that was used to come to these votes? Because it's kind of disjointed when you see the votes here, but you don't see the rationale for the process, which was staff's and legal's recommendation to be aware of the 14th Amendment and other things that needed to be done by this, and prioritization as well by this August committee. So is that something you're going to handle now, or will you handle that in our meeting next week? Because it's kind of disjointed just for these folks to see this vote, especially some of these guys that didn't attend, who don't know what really did happen, with Vernicia making the presentation that she made and having had to sit down with the city attorney based on the 14th Amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee. Great question. Vernicia, would you like to add some context to the process and what we went through? I will say that there was one individual on staff who did record. They just did I believe on their cell phone. And so I'll see if I'm able to get that recording and go back and add some context. But Vernicia, would you like to share part of the process of what took place on June the 1st for those who were not in attendance?
Sure. I did have that kind of baked into the next piece that we were going to talk about. So if there are no questions on what Salah is presenting here, Salah, may I share my screen?
You can. I'll stop sharing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
And I can no longer see your faces, so.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I just wanted to give you all a quick overview of some of the things that's new from the retreat. The voting process has remained the same. So everyone submitted their recommendations and we followed the same process. However, we talked about a couple different things at the retreat that I wanted to review with you all. So can everybody see this second slide here?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So one of the things we did, we talked a lot in our past recommendations or in our past meetings about the language of Black residents. Some folks chose to not vote or pass recommendations specifically because that language is in here, which is what Ms. D has been referencing. And so what I did was had a conversation with the legal team. And so I simply asked, if we can't say Black residents, what exactly can we say? And so two things they wanted to make sure that we were aware of was, number one, the 14th Amendment. The reason why we can't say Black resident or we can't specify any specific group is because of the 14th Amendment, which states, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without process without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. And then what was also shared was the local City of Asheville non-discrimination ordinance. And so what that specifically listed out were the things here listed in the bullet point. So we can't specifically specify race or discriminate against anyone based on race, natural hair, hair texture, hairstyles, ethnicity, creed, color, sex, sexual orientation, marital and family status, veteran status, religious belief or non-belief, age, and disability. So these are just the laws and the things that are put in place. And what legal shared with me was this is exactly what we would tell city council and county commissioners. By law, these are the things that they must follow. Now, I know we all have voiced frustrations around this because we can share examples of other groups that have benefited from specific benefits. What was shared was there is always a loophole. And the loophole is to try to describe the group that we are intending to serve without listing all of these things here that are in bullet points. So I just kind of pulled some language from the recommendations. So for example, for the economic development IFA group, they said create an economic development center or centers for Black Asheville. The language that we can use that would still impact the intended group is to create an economic development center designed to benefit Black Asheville. So it's wordsmithing, but it keeps us following the law. It prevents us from breaking the law by just adding these few words, designed to benefit. This was just one example. The second bullet point attempted to describe characteristics of who we want to serve. So the education IFA group said scholarships for Black students. Suggested language would be provide scholarships to people who are descendants from legacy neighborhoods affected by urban renewal, redlining, and are of low income. So this is just describing the characteristics of the group of people. And then the last bullet point here, programs limited to or for Black residents was in the current drafted recommendations. This suggestion was to insert whatever program or recommendation it was with the goal to specifically benefit Black Asheville. So this is the loophole. When we think about the different examples of other groups that have benefited from different programming, reparations, whatever it may be, this is the language that you will find. None of those groups have benefited by specifically listing out different groups based on these bullet points here. So there's a loophole. Words like designed to benefit, describing the characteristics of the group of people that we want to serve, which is Black people in Asheville, or words like with the goal to specifically benefit. Those keeps us within the law. Let me pause here. Well, before I pause, what was shared was that the group who attended the retreat all voted to modify the language to what was proposed or recommended by legal. And I may have missed some things. So I see Michael Frew's hand. So Michael, if I missed something, misspoke, please correct me and you can chime in here and then we'll open up the space for questions.
Okay, thanks, Bernicia. First, sorry I couldn't make the retreat on the first. Just listening to your comments, I agree with everything you said. I just want to point out one thing. The concern and caution I want to impress is that it depends on how such a program is put in place. So, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, we can say in wordsmith, but it would actually have a great deal to do with how the program is carried out as to whether or not it'd be legal.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit, please? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no problem, Dwayne. I think if you read case law, if you read the news, if you read about lawsuits that are sometimes reported in the press, the evidence comes in the form in discrimination lawsuits in the form of patterns and practices. So it is a program implemented in such a way that it denies benefits to some, if not all, white people, for instance. So it would just depend on how the program is put in place. That's why we've talked before about we got the various community centers, and we know they're located in legacy neighborhoods. If a program was put in place at one of those facilities by the city and or county through an interlocal agreement or otherwise, you know, maybe the location keeps it legal because it's in a predominantly Black or legacy neighborhood. So, I mean, that would be a way to make sure the program stays true to its bounds and does not go afoul of the law. I mean, if it's put into a place where predominant use is not because of the program, but because of its location, I think that might be something that would keep it legal. But again, I think it's the program implementation and details, which are really the things that concern me.
Thank you for that explanation.
Sure.
And thank you, Michael, and great question. And so what I'll also say is implementation came up a lot at the retreat, but again, we're not at the implementation phase yet. So any questions around the implementation won't be answered in this phase, but it is something that we will address once we move past, you know, this portion of the CRC charge. I do see two hands. I'll go to Tiffany and then MZ.
Thank you. So that's, thank you, Michael, for clarifying that. My question is around when we say benefit, does that mean that it is also open to anyone's use? So therefore, for example, in neighborhoods that's gentrified, could that also mean that white people can use the space at will?
That would certainly be my recommendation, yes.
So that's just something that we want to keep in mind as we are wordsmithing.
Yes.
So so it also kind of alludes to the fact that then reparations would be for all.
I think so. I mean, I can't easily think of a way to fashion a program that could be exclusive to the Black community. That's been elusive for me under current law.
It comes to my mind, and thank you for that too. It comes to my mind like country clubs, which are very exclusionary.
Yeah.
So we want to be very careful how we move forward with this, knowing those factors.
Thank you, Tiffany. MZ and then Dewana.
Thank you, Ms. Venetia. And thank you, Michael, for chiming in. My question, it kind of touches on what Tiffany kind of was alluding to. And this is really just a foundational question. Reparations, as it's been resolved and as a resolution has been developed, is it legally defensible? If we're talking about reparations for Black Asheville, is it legally defensible? And then how so or how not so? And then the next part of the question is, how willing is the city and the county to kind of step in if it's not defensible, given the backdrop of this resolution being passed and the backdrop of this whole commission being formed? How willing is the city and the county to kind of jump in and challenge it not being legally defensible?
Well, I think, MZ, it's again, it's two different things. I think I see the recommendations from this commission are standalone. Each recommendation is what it is, and it's an aspiration, it's a hope, maybe it's a dream, maybe it's doable. The legality has to come from an examination of how the program is put together and implemented. Now, all these recommendations are going to end up with city council and the county commissioners, and they're going to have to take them under advisement and consideration, knowing limited resources available to implement them. I imagine a commission will have to set priorities for programs, and programs will have to be put together and implemented based on the recommendations from this commission, from this Community Reparations Commission. So I can't tell the future, but I don't know how the programs will end up being developed. Some of the recommendations have indicated, for instance, to pay Black residents. That is highly problematic in terms of being defensible with existing law. And I know maybe you all have seen the recent lawsuit was filed up in Evanston. Is that in Illinois? Based on their program to provide funding to specific members of the Black community. And they didn't go straight after the constitutional aspect, but through Title VII and Title VI, which are different types of discrimination, which are banned by the Civil Rights Act. So there's a number of ways that they could be challenged, but it would be my hope that any recommendations that are brought up and approved by the Board of Commissioners, the program would be defensible. But just, in my opinion, straight payments to members of the Black community without any return for services would be highly problematic. But again, I don't know what programs are going to be a priority for the council or the Board of Commissioners.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
We have Dewana, Dwayne, and then Keith.
I think so the word, I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying, Mr. Frew. The wording that's used in this presentation, language to consider, designed to benefit Black Asheville. Let's just take that one statement right there. Are you saying that we can design, and I think Tiffany asked this question, but I'm just like, I'm just trying to make it make sense to me, because the city and county both did a resolution that is specific to Black people and charged this commission to develop things specific to repairing the harm that was perpetuated on Black people. And so with that being said, I'm just trying to understand, like, they can design this process with the specifics of Black people. The 14th Amendment was in action then. I'm just trying to understand what makes the actual work that we did and actually doing what we were tasked to do, what makes it different now, and using that same language that the city and county, both municipalities, use, and creating this commission. And so when we make our recommendations based off the charge, so technically it was illegal to charge us to do what we did. And now it's like we get to the end and it's like, or get to this place where we actually implement recommendations based off the charge that was given by the city and county. And is, and I haven't been reading about the lawsuits and all of the things, but I'm like, if the federal government figured it out, and I said this at the retreat, then we should figure it. Our legal bodies, peoples that's a part of this process, should be able to figure it out to make it effective, because we were charged with a task. And it was stipulated on the resolution that the city and county, it didn't say all people in those resolutions. It didn't say all people in the charge that we was given, that we have been working under for the last 2 years. It was specific to Black people. And now the recommendations can't be specific to Black people. And I guess that's the part that is just
Well, I mean,
concerning to me.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the first recommendation is pretty small, but I can't read it. But if the design and language of the recommendation to benefit Black Asheville, I think that's fine. But that's perfectly legal. That's perfectly defensible. I think that goes back to my original point. My concern would be about how such a program to benefit the Black Ashevilleans is implemented. So how is it set in motion? What happens, after it's implemented? What are the effects? So I can't answer that at this point because it hasn't been rolled out. It hasn't been implemented.
But I think you bypassed the part of what I'm saying. So what I'm actually saying is like, if the resolution, our task, our charge as a commission was specific to Black, that is in the paperwork. The resolution, all of this stuff is visible, public, it's in the paperwork, right? So now the recommendations, I think that's the part. Now we can't be specific in of this commission, but we can't be in specific address the charge, like completing the charge. I guess that's the part that's confusing me.
I don't have an answer to that, Tawana. I see Brad's on there. Maybe he can help. But I just, again, I don't know how the program's going to be implemented. I just don't know that at this time.
Yes, let's hear from Brad.
Yeah, good evening, commission members. I appreciate Michael taking the lead on a lot of this. This is and has always been the complexity in the difficult task that each of you have been given to do. Now, to Dewana's point, let me say that you were tasked with creating recommendations for reparations. The complexity to that is that at a local government level, no one has ever done this before. There are a few local governments, just a handful now, that have tried this. Several of them are also now in lawsuits about those things. If there was a particular roadmap to achieve this, I can promise you the staff would have given it to you. But in your process and through the work of your IFA groups, we believe you've already delivered several recommendations that are prepared to go right now, that are fully legally defensible in my mind. And Michael and I have been pleased to see that. It makes our job so much easier. Others, we believe, are question marks, and some are going to be very, very difficult. But that was always going to be the case. And we tried our best to be a resource through you and to continue to be a resource for you without hindering your process and naming the harms and naming those individuals who are deserving of the reparative process is something that we want to never stand in the way of. But we do want to make sure that you know where those obstacles lie. And a lot of the wording choices that we've suggested to you are intended to try to move some of these recommendations that are most difficult legally to an area that gives you a choice. Are you willing to be a little less specific if we gain some legal defensibility? But as Michael's pointed out, and this is really important, it's not just in the words. And having it worded perfectly does a lot, but at the end of the day, we are still not allowed to implement a discriminatory program, which means no more than we could design a program that only benefited Christians or just females. We can't design a program that, even if it doesn't say that, is discriminatory in its effect. So the suggestions that we've given you, and I think this is important, are designed both to give you the option, not the directive, of how you might be able to give some consideration to wording these recommendations in a way that allows the implementation to also be designed in a much more legally defensible way. But at no point, as I have said before, are we as legal counsel going to tell any commission member that you are not able to make a recommendation that specifically calls out the Black community, targets the Black individuals in this community, But we want you to do it knowingly, knowing that will oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes make the legal battle more difficult. Unfortunately, there is no roadmap for what we're doing. So we are learning as you are, and we're watching what's happening in other places throughout the country when these reparations efforts go into place and legal challenges come about. So this is unfortunately a difficult process. And it is why you have been working so very hard, and staff will continue to work hard with you to move forward.
Thank you so much, Brad. I do see a lot of hands in the queue. Before we continue down that line of folks, I do want to share the second slide that we shared at the retreat. And what this slide talked about was the difference between programs and policies. So programs are short-term interventions that can, they can last, well beyond, 1 or 2 or 3 years. Programs can be implemented over a long period of time, but they are short interventions. Policies are things that are long-term, and they are simply agreements that we collectively choose to live by. And oftentimes it's reflected in legislation, it's reflected in organizational policy or local government or federal policy. And so we talked about this because, number one, you can see right now how there's a policy in place, legislation, a law that's been passed, a couple of different laws that has been passed years ago that is, it was put in place to prevent the harm that Black people went through, but it is now also one of those things that in the attempt to prevent it from happening to any other group, it is also now somewhat a barrier for us to, implement reparations in the way that we all would like to see it. So this is important because this work is going to take advocacy. To Brad's point, no, we haven't done this before. No one has done this before. It is going to take advocacy. We will fail. We have failed. We'll continue to push through and figure out new pathways as we learn and grow. But this is not a straight linear path at all. And so the fight will continue even beyond this phase into the implementation phase. We may find ourselves facing, other challenges against other groups. So that's just something to keep in mind, that the work that we're doing, you all, is not anything that is linear. It's not anything that's going to be easy even after this phase. It may get more challenging, but I wanted to talk about the program versus the policy, because in order to change law, in order to change the rules that we are up against, it takes a lot of advocating. It takes a lot of change, and that is at the policy level versus the program level. Okay, so I just wanted to get through that review because I know we have a few more hands raised. We also still have a few other things to check off on the agenda. So what I'll do, I will now go to, I lost my cue.
Dwayne Richardson.
Thank you. I hear from you.
So thank you, Dewana. I respect that we need to move forward, but some of the comments and questions I feel were relevant to the previous slide. So in that respect, we did go linear, and we did not acknowledge what we needed to do in regard to the previous slide. So having said that, and now you have gone back to it, there have been conversations, and I'm curious to hear what Dee's comment and what Keith's comment is going to be, because it was relative to this slide. But I think that what I wanted to speak to briefly was everything that we're doing and the difficulties that we're encountering and the semantics that we're trying to fight through to get what we want is going to further lend towards, for those of us who have not lost patience with the process, to seek an extension and to verbalize in a intelligent fashion to council and commission why we need that extension. First of all. Second, I think that Brad and Michael have both at previous times in the process. I don't want to diminish everyone's desire to include Black in the language and to find pathways to do that if possible, where possible. But we've also been told that through the creation of an independent entity to go forward with the recommendations and to try and go forward with the goals of the commission, that in theory, a 501c3 that's of a private nature can approach these recommendations in a more specific fashion than a public entity that is funded by city, county, or government of any kind. And so I would like to see if Brad and Michael could kind of come back to the table for just a moment and speak to what we could accomplish in an independent nature versus the under the funding, if you will, of city, county. And so I think that I would like for the group to hear the possibilities around that.
Dwayne, before we do that, what I think is a outside conversation needs to be had to allow them time to figure that out and to come back to the group, because this slide here was also an offline conversation. It wasn't something, it took us some time to really think through this strategically. So what I will ask is for Mr. Richardson's question to be noted, and we can come back with a more thorough answer, because it's going to take some time to prepare that answer. So
can we set a date for the 17th for our next meeting for that answer to be given to the council, given that we are also considering an extension, and that has been a part of the conversation, the separation of this process and the different possibilities. That's something that the attorneys have already presented on with you, Venetia. So if we're going to postpone that, can we make sure that that's on the next agenda as a line item of discussion and allow enough time to really have a discussion around it as a commission, because it would pertain to the extension that is further down on the
well, can I also ask that we quickly query them to see if they have short answers that could be of value to the commission, rather than you speaking necessarily for them?
well, it's a best practice, Mr. Richardson, because this is what happened with this question that we're talking about right now. And we also have a few more comments. And I also just want to remind everybody, the CRC, those who attended the retreat, have already voted and passed for language to be modified to the language to be considered. So this is just an update from what happened at the retreat. I do want to hear from the other folks, the other questions, because there may be other questions that will get back to legal. So Mr. Richardson, I would say to wait for legal to answer that question. And I would like to hear from the other folks who are waiting to speak.
Keith.
Thank you. I think Mr. Richardson had a very succinct question, a very important question. And I want to say that I believe that there, maybe intentionally or not intentionally, there's a bit of, it's a bit disingenuous of our local governments to act as though there isn't a pathway forward. And I've mentioned this several times before. When I was on council, there were several resolutions that were already drafted as a precursor after the reparations resolution that would answer a lot of these questions. One of which would be the implementation, which is the real devil in the details, and not necessarily the wording itself. And because of that, the then chief financial officer of the city, Barbara Whitehorn, was the one who came up with the concept of a blended component unit to help the implementation that would sidestep and skirt all of the things that we're talking about with the 14th Amendment and such. That was actually approved by the then chief financial officer, and a subsequent resolution was drafted. And upon my last meeting on city council, that resolution was stripped down and then ultimately removed from our agenda. So to say that we don't know and for you to say that we got to get an answer for them. These things have been mentioned. And because of that blended component unit, shortly thereafter, going into COVID, a blended component unit sort was used to fund the One Buncombe Fund. And individuals were given money as sole proprietors, the very lowest bar, and those funds were forgiven. So there is a pathway forward, and Mr. Richardson's question was very succinct and very, very timely. Those things can be answered, and it's not as though folks have not heard of these things and they've been they got to go do all the research. I'll say it again: the then CFO of the city of Asheville, Barbara Whitehorn, helped us develop a process forward. That process would have actually came out in a council meeting and have been voted on. But again, it was stripped down and taken off the agenda. And what we've been given here as a commission is not necessarily all the tools that we need to move forward. We're given half of what we need, and the other half is being hidden as if we don't know what the pathway forward is. So I know that these two gentlemen who represent the city and the county know exactly what the One Buncombe Fund is. And if you do your research, you will find that what I say is the truth. And a blended component unit was pitched so that the city and the county were not necessarily the ones to implement this process. A separate entity would be the ones that implement this process, and they would fund it. That's why the Reparations Stakeholder Authority of Asheville exists in lieu of that. So we're not being given all the information. So again, you can check all my words. This is the truth.
Thank you, Keith. MZ and then D.
MZ.
And after we hear from these two, I'll lean back to the legal team.
And this may be something that Brad and Michael may want to address later, just the precedents for payments or programs or policies being made directly to people based off their ethnicity and in the United States history or even in local and state history. How does that compare to these efforts now? There have been efforts to return land to people, we can name Japanese Americans, we can name indigenous people, we can name slave owners. So it has been done previously. So how, what is the loophole that was used to do that can't be used in this case?
Thank you, MZ. I got that question noted. And D.
Thank you. I just want to be very brief. I want to thank the city and county attorneys. I think a lot was assumed. We all come from various backgrounds and most of us are not attorneys, but some of us deal with money and we deal with regulations that are federal. And the 14th Amendment is real. And these attorneys are not going to advise their substantial clients who are city and county locally elected officials who are sworn to uphold both local, state, and federal laws to violate those laws. So you might as well just, we can have a hypothetical, professorial conversation, but these attorneys are not going to take to their substantial clients, who are our governments, language that is going to get them into a lawsuit. And so there are ways to do this if you're smart. You have to stop playing checkers and start playing chess. And some of us who've been out here for the money know this. So there are ways to do this. The other thing that I would say to you is that we need to really stop fighting each other. We are all put here for a particular reason. And it's not because of who we like. It's because of our skill levels. And there's going to have to be a nonprofit institution that provides a buffer once the city designates those funds that can have some derivation, but it can't go crazy because once you receive city funding, you have to ascribe to those anti-discrimination ordinances. And that's about all I have to say. We've wasted a lot of time, and I've got another comment about that. Because we all do come from different backgrounds, and a lot of us are proselytizers and we're speech writers and great speech givers and we believe in all of that. But there are a lot of people who in this town, and I'm a native, who are suffering. And so it is time to move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee. I will yield back to the legal team for final comments and then we'll continue on.
Michael Frew here. I'm not sure where you'd like me to start. I mean, I'll just kick in with Mr. Richardson's question. The real brief response is I think that private, nonprofit, and totally independent organization can do a lot more than what the city and county are authorized to do. But that wouldn't be without limitation. I just want to point out also, I mean, last week I read about Atlanta, and in Atlanta, different set of laws, but a nonprofit corporation, the Fearless Fund, was having a program exclusive to young Black women. So a lawsuit's been filed. I don't know how that lawsuit's going to pan out, but the lawsuit alleges that discrimination based on race in making contracts is prohibited by the Civil Rights Act. So there's a lot of advocacy that needs to be done and not a lot of work that needs to be done for these recommendations. But the two things I know for sure is your recommendations are your recommendations. I think they're standalone. How they'll be implemented in the future, I just don't know.
Thank you, Michael. Brad, do you have any final comment?
Just really briefly, I really want to highlight one thing that Michael said. That there are going to be things that we as local governments can do. I really want to say that. If we thought that there was not a path to reparations, then your time would not have been wasted. And I feel that your time has not been wasted. But I will also say that having another entity, a private nonprofit, which has, as Michael said, fewer restrictions, much fewer restrictions on it, would be a wonderful way to supplement those things that the city and the county can do so that we are casting the widest net possible, whether that's collaborative or completely on their own. I can tell you, as Michael mentioned, any direct payments to anyone are very specifically prohibited unless you get a public service back for the city and the county. But you know what? A private entity could give money, could give scholarships directly to individuals. And there are always going to be limitations at certain levels of what the law will call discrimination that we can continue to help provide advice upon. But in recommending so many different things across all of your 5 focus areas, you give the city and the county the ability to try to implement as many of those as legally and financially possible, but supplementing that with an external source that can also raise external funds gives you not only additional legal leeway, but additional financial resources. So I just really want to highlight that as well.
Thank you very much.
Right, you all. Well, thank you. Such a great conversation. I'm going to keep moving forward and briefly just give you all a quick update on where we are via the timeline. So just a quick summary. This is also what we reviewed at the retreat. In the month of May and part of June, we have successfully passed all recommendations that was submitted to City and Council, and we passed those by majority vote. The amazing community engagement team together has engaged over 3,200 residents. And then also we voted in a new chair, Dewana Little, and a new vice chair, Babette Mays. So we are right here in June. So 2 things that we are working on is the submission of the recommendations and the final presentation. So when we look at the remaining tasks to complete the charge and task of the CRC, these 3 were what we needed to complete last month. And so as of today, we do have the final draft of recommendations. I believe there may be 1 or 2 additional ones that folks are submitting. We did vote on all of those recommendations and pass them. So that leaves us simply with the final report. and the final presentation, which would be delivered to City Council and County Commissioners by the Chair and Vice Chair. So with that said, the question, there are two questions. Seeing that the only thing remaining for to complete the charge and task of the CRC is the final report and the presentations, the question is, do you all still feel that an extension is needed to complete the remaining items of the CRC? And so I will open up the floor here for feedback.
Keith's hands raised. Keith.
Oh, go ahead, Keith.
Oh, I just had a real brief question that probably should have asked a long time ago. Out of the 3,200 residents that were I guess engaged, do y'all know how many of those were Black?
Dewana, do you want to take that question?
So the survey is definitely not segregated by race. We did not ask any of those questions, even though it was requested by the commission. It was not able to be implemented prior to one of our biggest engagement events, which was the Jamboree in April. And so I am not sure. I know I talked to a lot of Black people and engaged a lot of Black people. I'm not sure exactly the demographics of the actual survey results. And so La might could provide more details, but I don't know that information.
So on the surface, we really don't know how many Black people we talked to.
Well,
Keith,
just to add, because we really did put in the footwork, and I would say, I know it's at least 60%. When we add the Jamboree and when we add the interactions that we did in the neighborhoods, because we physically went to different individuals. As far as an actual number, we didn't calculate that.
Yeah.
Mr. Richardson, and then D.
My comment is relevant to do you feel an extension request is still needed? I very much feel that an extension is needed. We have made a great deal of progress, and we've had a flurry of progress here as we've drawn closer to the tentative deadline. But I think that there's a tremendous amount of work that we still have to do. There are things that need to be parsed out from the recommendations, some of the language that we've had offered to us today from the attorneys, different things that will require for an extension to be accomplished and to put together the entity that we wish to create to go forward, how it will function, how it will be created. In other words, who the members will be. There's just a great deal of work remaining. And while there seems to be a faction of the commission that has lost patience for the process, and it's been a grueling couple of years, and respectfully to those people, I can see where they may have lost their patience. However, for those who feel that there's still lots of work to do that's quite relevant, I think that that extension would be a great use of those individuals' time, because they still see a need for it, and they see productive things that can be accomplished and that can point in the right direction and perhaps set the commission up for long-term success. Whereas if we stop here with so many unanswered questions, we've kind of really we've come forward with recommendations, but I realize that we're not tasked with implementation. However, we are tasked with seeing the recommendations to a place where they can be implemented, and we are not there yet at an extension. I think that a show of hands from the individuals who remain, who wish to be involved in the extension, I think that's relevant, and there will be obviously folks who don't want an extension. And so those who don't want an extension, I mean, respectfully can move on and do what they choose to do to help this process in their way going forward. And those who wish to continue with it and seek an extension can go forward respectfully in the same fashion, collectively. And there's just a lot left to be done. And so I'm advocating strongly for an extension, and I always will.
you, Mr. Richardson. D.
Thank you. I just want to say that I am respectful of everyone in this process and your opinions. The first thing that I want to address is the extension. A lot of us who have promulgated and promoted programs and budgets have been rebuked at every turn. Let's be clear. Okay, so the city and county staff, if you're there, you need to know this. Some of you, I've even emailed with some of those programs and budgets that have not been put forth. So if we're going to be truth tellers, we need to tell the whole truth. That was not something that was desired. So I don't care what they do. It's up to them as an elected body is what they should do. But this process should have been and could have been moved farther along if those of us who know who are put here to do this were allowed to do it, but we were not. We've been ostracized, and that is just absolutely the truth. The second thing is that the city and county governments are the ones who have control of funds, not this commission. And they're going to do what is, I guess, prudent to them. And if y'all want to go ahead and forge on with what you're doing, and with the exclusion of those of us who've been excluded, you're welcome to do so at your own risk and your own peril, because we've been put here for a reason. And let me just say, those of us who've been here all along, we don't have equal voice with a lot of people. I'm just talking straight up. So whether the city and county government allocates or gives that time is fine. But to waste more time and argue about philosophical arguments, you cannot change the 14th Amendment, not unless you've been appointed to the Supreme Court or Congress changes it. It doesn't matter what your opinions are. The law is the law. The other thing that I would address is that I would like to have substantial conversation with city upper management, county upper management, and legal staff about the numerous lawsuits that have come before by getting together a community group that could invoke the Rule 11 with these attorneys who do take on these lawsuits or frivolous lawsuits as a stopgap, because I think we're going to be plagued by it. So I would want to entertain that conversation with you. If this august body wants to do it, then fine. If they choose to exclude like they have, then I'm good with that too. So that is the end of my conversation. I just need to know that we've been excluded. We've provided input, budgets, and programs to no avail. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee. Go to Dewana and then Tiffany Double.
Sorry. I still feel that I'm definitely supporting Mr. Richardson in the extension, because now the concern is if the wording and like what the lawyers have stressed is like, it's all in the details of the implementation. I do feel like some segment of this body should be a part of ensuring that the intentions that the recommendations was written in, the programs was developed in, should be a part of that implementation and making sure that things are implemented effectively, because the harms that we were working to address. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna say black. Y'all don't have to like the word black. I'm gonna say black because that's what it's about. And that black people are currently experiencing, and I'm a native too, and still experiencing and have previously experienced historically, it's just like, oh, now we give it to them and it's all in the implementation. Like, we need to be at the table for that implementation as well as for how these programs are implemented to ensure that it impacts the people that need to be impacted. This has been a highly publicized process. And with that being said, every person that's on this commission and that's doing work in community, our faces is on this process. Our names are on this process. Our reputation is on this process. And I have a lot of community connections that are looking for what this process actually produces. And if is it go do what it was built to do? And I would hate to think that it was set up for failure, because if it's not specific to Black people, then we fail in the majority of we failing on the purpose of this process. And I hate to say that, but that's the reality. I understand lawsuits, I understand contracts, I understand the Fourth Amendment, I understand all of the things. I get it, but I'm like, it's got to be another way. I refuse to think that we have historically watched other groups get reparations and receive funds, land, all of the things. We have watched it happen with the Fourth Amendment in place. And then when it comes to Black, it's a problem. When we have minority programs, they discriminate. If you're not considered a minority and fall into that box of what minority is, we have programs currently in the city that's, you know what I'm saying, that's exclusive to other groups. You know what I mean? So it's like, how do we do this work, and how do we continue to have this conversation and really build? And it's not in opposition with the city and county, but build with the city and county. If that's a legislative push, if that's whatever it takes, like, I feel like we definitely need the extension, because it's still too much work to be done. I definitely agree with Mr. Richardson. And so I'll stop there because I see Tiffany's hand up, and MZ, your hand was up. I don't know what happened just now. Okay, I see you. Tiffany, sorry.
Thank you. So for me, just recognizing the need for more time and my request, I agree both with Dwayne Richardson and Dewana, but also to ensure that we have an advocacy group that's set in place. We also want to be able to have continued community engagement that's based on education and implementation, an implementation around the design and how it can look, but city and county-wide as far as community engagement, to the point where this process now extends out and becomes more participatory. We also need more time for continued accountability around policy development and how things pan out. And again, lastly, just around what the attorneys mentioned, we need more time in order for us to ensure that our program implementation does not go against any type of doesn't go against the law, pretty much. So I believe that having more time is necessary. And finally, because there's a collective request for more time.
Thank you, Tiffany. Last comment here, NZ.
Thank you, everyone. I do believe, and I've stated this over and over again, we need to establish a permanent commission, not just an extension for another 2 weeks or 2 months. We need to not let this die down until reparations, the full scope that was laid out in a resolution, is addressed. Until it's addressed, we haven't done resolutions, we haven't done reparations, and we haven't fulfilled the work that needs to be done. The education IFA has passed 2 proposals, one for a task force, another one for accountability council. I do believe that the transfer or some type of correspondence or communication needs to happen around those. But I would state emphatically that we will be dropping the ball if we shut this down at this point. Your name is on the line. Some people care about their name. Some people care about their legacy. And everyone has put work in, despite what some people may think, and everybody's put work in. That includes the city and the county staff as well. Everyone has worked to put some work into this. But I would say we've dropped the ball. If we end it here, we may need to think about how to reshift and how to restructure. I understand some people are tired. Some people feel they have other, prerogatives. But these are part of the conversations that need to happen before, we wash our hands of this. So I would emphatically state we do need to consider an extension, but not just a week, so a couple months, but a permanent commission until reparations is addressed fully.
Here, here.
Thank you.
Here, here.
All right, you all. So while I appreciate everybody's comments, we do have a couple things to go over, but I just want to remind folks that um, when we are talking about this extension, it is to complete what is remaining. And that is what the city council and county commissioners or city and county staff will look at. Everything that you all have said is coming in the next phase. Okay, this work is not stopping. It is just this phase of recommendation development is stopping. And so everything that you are saying, you all are right. You all are ready for implementation. You're ready to be involved. You're ready to have those conversations. So again, they are going to be deciding, should you have an extension based on what is remaining from the initial charge. That's going to be their deciding factor. Now, we did have to, MD's point, there was that recommendation that was passed for the task force and the advisory and accountability council. All of those things around the implementation can live in those groups. And so we just need to be able to get past this phase, because this is what will determine whether the city council, county commissioners extend. So with that said, what I will do is simply ask you all a question to consider. And then what we do have to do is take a vote to submit an extension request. But what I first want to do is, we did this at the CRC retreat, just by a show of hands, or maybe if you want to put in the chat, yes, or your name, but who is interested in remaining involved beyond this phase and beyond June with this work? If you can just put your name in the chat so we can just take note of how many people would be interested in remaining involved in that next phase of this work. Thank you, Dewana. Tiffany, thank you. Babette, thank you. Wayne, gotcha. Thank
Cece,
you.
I see your hand.
Okay, can we put
Cece?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Can we put Cece's name in there, Dewana, just for the record? Thank you, Christopher Gordon, Renata, thank you. Okay. Miss Norma Baines, let's count her. Mr. McAfee, is this, are you saying yes, you want to move forward as well? I see a hand raised. I believe so. Dewana, can you just count the hand raises too? Put their names in there. Okay. Okay, see Renita Waters. Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Miss Norma. Okay, so this was just a quick, just pulse checks it to see who would be interested in moving forward, because the next phase doesn't have to look like this one. You all have brought up many concerns about the process, how it was designed. The beautiful thing about it is that we have experience. We have 2 years of experience of what worked and what did not work. So this next phase, we get to design what it could look like. And be a little bit more impactful and a little bit more smooth. So with that said, the question again, do you feel an extension request is still needed based off this last bullet point, final report and presentation? We will need a motion to vote, a second, and then a roll call vote. Is there a motion on the floor?
Motion to vote.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second Renata Conyers.
Thank you, Renata. So the question is based on what is remaining here, which is the final report and presentation, not implementation, it's coming, but just based here. Do you believe that we still need an extension? So we'll do a roll call vote, and all you have to say is yes or no.
Okay.
Ms. Babette.
Okay, Norma Baines.
Hold on,
Yes.
just a quick second. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Dr. No has a
I
question.
have a question for clarification. Is there a time frame? I wasn't at the retreat, so I don't know if this was, but is there a specific time frame for the extension?
So based on how the CRC votes, The vice chair and chair will then have discussions to work out those details. That's what was discussed at the retreat. There is a draft of language that is included in the agenda. Here's just a quick snapshot of that on the slide here. But this information, vice chair and chair will be able to complete on behalf of the CRC. But this language is in the agenda. Right now, we just need to see if we have majority vote to submit an extension based off what is left to complete.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, Ms.
Tiffany
Babette.
Devereaux? Tiffany, yes, no? Okay. Renetta Conyers?
Yes.
Christopher Gordon?
Yes.
Roy Harris?
No.
Dewana Little? Yes, I already know.
Yes.
Dwayne McAfee?
Yes.
And I'm voting yes, so we could. Glenda McDowell?
Yes.
Mildred Carson?
Yes.
Asandu McPeters?
Yes.
Dwayne Richardson?
Yes.
Renetta Waters?
Yes.
CC Weston?
Yes.
D. Williams?
No.
MZ?
Yes.
Keith Young?
Yes.
Okay. We got 13 yes and 2 no.
Okay, so that passes. So what will happen next is the chair and vice chair will get together, talk with CRC members about completing the draft of the extension language. Okay, so again, the draft
I can
of
share that.
it.
Would you
Go
like me
ahead,
to share, would you like me to share the draft of the document?
Yes, I'll stop showing now. Dewana, did you have a question?
Yeah, could we not also send out timeframes in as a part of the survey following this meeting? So that those so that our commission also has the opportunity to voice what the extension timeline looks like as well. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So Salah, I think what we would probably want to do is just add a question to the survey to ask that question, how long would you like the extension?
Got it.
Thank you. So what Lord geez, sorry. So what Salah is sharing is just drafted language that we kind of came up together with the chair and vice chair for the extension request. So at the top here, it's just simply saying that we respectfully request an additional extension of X amount of months. And then what the city council really wanted to know was, what have you completed since the previous extension was passed back in November of 2023? So we just drafted a few of the bullet points that we thought was really important. And if there are other things that you all want to add, it can be added here. You would just share that with the chair and vice chair. This second portion here, Salah, if you want to scroll down. The second portion here, to complete the full charge of the CRC, we need to complete the following items. So what's already listed, these were just examples of things that came from some comments, but one it was brought up for to continue community engagement. The other, which is what you have seen on various slides, which is to write and finalize the CRC report and the presentation. And there is already a group that is meeting right now bi-weekly to work on that final report. And so this just, and then what we're also doing is linking the results of the survey. So we're not taking your words and turning them around. We are giving raw data from the survey to the city council to review. So this again is just drafted language, and this is what the chair and vice chair will be working from in the next coming weeks. Dewana, final comment here, and then we'll move on to the next.
I think MZ and then me. MZ handles that first.
I'm sorry, MZ, go ahead.
Yeah, can you add on this, addressing the harms perpetrated through enslavement, Jim Crow, convict leasing, the crack epidemic?
Yep, any additions you would want to see to this document, you would just email the chair and vice chair.
Okay, just email them? Okay.
Yes, yes, sir.
All right.
And that's for the whole group.
Okay.
So just to the full commission. So the survey results, I definitely would like to see that listed on here. And I will work with city staff to make sure that is listed with the reasons, the extension request and the reasons for the extension request that was listed in the survey results, which is being shown now on the screen. And so I want to make sure that that's listed in there. I want it to be a complete document instead of a link. And so we will work towards that. So y'all will see a draft of this before we are prepared to hopefully. When are we set to go before city council? Does anyone have the date for that?
You're not set, but if you would like to go at the upcoming meeting on July, let me look at the calendar. So we have a meeting on the, I want to say the 25th. Sure. Second and fourth. Yeah, I think there's a meeting on the 25th, or we have a meeting in July. There's only one meeting in July.
So that's June 25th or July?
July, let me check the date for July. I think it's the 9th. July the 9th.
I definitely will. If we trying to do June, then the draft that need to be presented to the commission at our next meeting. And I think about timeline in this, if that's really feasible, or would it be July would be the best date so that we have time to present the draft to the full commission with all of this input and all the edits that'll be coming to us, and additions that'll be coming to us between then and now. So I just want to kind of set a timeline for that.
Yeah, so like, correct me if I'm wrong, I do believe the June meeting for the city council and county commissioners, they have full agendas already, so it wouldn't, I think they said July would be better. Right,
yeah, so for tomorrow, actually one of the items that was going to be has been moved to the later June meeting. And then I stand corrected. The next meeting in July is actually July the 23rd, not the 9th. So I apologize, I stand corrected on that. So to answer your question, Bernicia, they could possibly, the Hall Creek item that was on the agenda where they were anticipating a large amount of people has been moved to the second meeting in June, but it's also the budget as well. So the budget is this meeting and I believe the next meeting. I would recommend, but it's up to you all, that you do it in July, but it's, you all can talk to each other as a commission and determine what you think is best for you.
Okay. I think July would be good, but I see Brad's hand.
Thanks. Just real quick, in terms of tomorrow night's meeting, I will remind everybody that we have already advertised the agenda publicly. So we're past the point where we could advertise that this was out there, which would cut down on the public's ability to know it was happening. So generally speaking, we want to add items to the agenda prior to the time when we would actually already publish those publicly and notice them. So at this point, your first option is going to be at least in the second meeting of June and then into July.
Thank you, Brad. Okay. Well, you all, it's 7:59.
I do want to just set the time, and I understand that, but let's just so my commission knows, like, we are going to move forward with this in July. So let's set it for that July meeting, Salah, and see if we could go ahead and get on that agenda. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, everybody. So we are at time. We had two final things to address, but we will need to move that to the next agenda or the next meeting, which was the community engagement update and the budget review from city and county. But this has been a great conversation from everybody. I think we're doing great. If you don't feel it, I'm just going to tell you, we are doing great work here. Again, we are making history. It's an honor to watch you all and be a part of the work. We know we got a lot of fight a lot of fight left in us and a lot of things to fight, and we will do it successfully together. So I will turn it over to Babette to review next steps, and then Dewana can close us out.
I did want to say, I don't know, next steps, we'll have our meeting next Monday, and that'll be at 6 o'clock. That meeting. You'll get that agenda. But I wanted to take the time. I know that we're talking about harm that was done, and I did talk to Salah about bringing this to you all. As you know, some of you may know that this next month, it'll be the 100th anniversary of Stevens Lee High School. But before Stevens Lee, it was the Catholic high school. And it was burnt. There was a fire in 1917. And in that fire, 7 kids were killed that they could not make it out of the, and so this is what it said. The student sustained burns, and one student was injured when he was forced to jump from a window to escape the flames. School officials initially thought all the students had escaped. However, a number of students had become separated from their teachers in the smoke-filled building. In the end, and I'm going to give you the names of these people, so to just reflect on why we're here and what we're doing. Mary Jameson, Hannah Semilton, Inez Davis, Daisy Dobbins, Hazel Harris, and her brother and sister Henry Thompson Pearson and Elsie Thompson Pearson. They did not make it out. So as we talk about this, I was asking that maybe we could get a proclamation from the Reparations Commission as they go into this 100th anniversary year of Stevens Lee, and maybe let them know that we're feeling them, because that was something that was horrific. And if we look back, that was harm done, because we really don't know how the parents, grandparents, or even the ancestors have survived after that had happened. So that was what I wanted to bring tonight.
Could I ask that we consider having that originate from the education IFA, just as an honorary thing? I mean, it can come from the group, but since Stevens Lee was such a pillar of our education, if it could originate from the education IFA, I think that would symbolically be a good gesture on our part as a commission as a whole.
Yeah, and I would like to see a proclamation from the whole commission.
Sure.
Because we are talking about, reparations, harm, cease to harm. Because if you think about it, and it really touches my heart, because I am someone that, when it comes down to history and what happened, and being a mother, I think about how the parents felt when they got someone to come to their door. And this was, I don't know where they lived, or a phone call, that their children did not survive. And the ones that were injured, where did they go? So I was just wanting to bring that to the group.
Thank you, Babette. And in the future, hold on one second, Dewana. For any other things that you all want to talk about, if you can let us know so we can, put that on the agenda. Ms. Babette, that was a great idea, and that deserves time to be discussed. We are at 8:04, and I do want to honor everybody's time. So the next meeting is June 17th. So Dewana, if you can close us out, anything new would need to be discussed after this meeting or put on the agenda. Because again, I'm not sure if we have public comment, but if Dewana, if you could go ahead and close us out.
We don't have any public comment at this time, but just to be clear, Babette did reach out to me last night, and I said that she could share that at the end of this meeting, and I forgot to tell you about that, Bernicia. So thank you.
Okay, thank
And
you.
I
Sorry
apologize.
about
No, you're
that.
good.
Thank you.
And Babette, if you hear of anything that they're doing to celebrate Stevens Lee, could you please let the commission know or send it to whichever one, Bernicia or Salah, who can get it out to the full commission so that we can we can show up as we can in celebration of
It's in
that.
July. It's July the 5th, 6th, and 7th. They've got some things going on, but I don't know if it's exclusive to the class or the school. But I just think that it would make a statement for us as a commission, for them to know that we cared and whatever we could do to let them know that, we were thinking about them, because that was serious. But I'll get with you, Dewana.
Thank you. So I would like to thank all of you for your time today, this evening. Y'all know these evening meetings be fun. So I just want to thank you all. We did get a lot accomplished. I do look forward to the items that we did not get to touch on tonight being on the next agenda for Monday. And there will be a proposal from community engagement on how to move community engagement forward and continue to build awareness in our community around this process. And so I just thank you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And please don't forget to reach out to me and Babette around any suggestions with the language for the extension request, anything that y'all see is missing or y'all feel needs to be added. Please reach out to us. And I definitely, most of y'all got my cell phone number, and I'll throw it in the chat real quick, but definitely please reach out to us. And I look forward to seeing y'all next Monday.
We have a motion to
We
close
need a
out.
motion to dismiss, yeah.
Motion to dismiss.
I'll make the, okay, I'll
You
second
can't make
it.
it, Dewana. You can't, you the chair. Let Mr. Richardson make the motion.
Motion
Okay.
to dismiss.
We have a
Second.
second.
All
Who
right.
second? Who second?
CC Weston.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you all have a
We
great